Howdy, Possum Patty here, and this is my new summer journal. Sandy toes and salty kisses. So come on along. I want to work on a few things today. All I did from the last video was put the photo into this little pocket of my Robin Hood's Father's Day spread. I think I wanted to put Father's Day up here, but I haven't found something to use yet. And I found an old postcard. One of the comments, they were talking about this old oak tree. And actually here it is, the major oak in Sherwood Forest, Nottinghamshire. And somebody gave me this postcard of this old oak tree. And this is the real tree right here. And I think I have a picture I want to put on the back of that, but for right now I'm just going to put it in the pocket so I don't lose that. Okay, so I might not do anything else on this page today. I have my cats in here with me. But we had a Father's Day picnic. I've been busy all week. I need to get some more journaling done, and I saved the sticker off the watermelon. So I thought that would be fun to add to my watermelon page. I might put a little extra glue on it. This watermelon was really, really good. And it was kind of heavy, you know, and I had the watermelon in my cart. And I handed the cashier the sticker so she could run it through the register so I wouldn't have to pick up the watermelon. And so she ran it through the scanner, and then she crumpled it up and was going to throw it out. I said, oh, okay. I said, can I have that sticker back? And she kind of gave me a funny look, like, what? She said, oh, okay, yeah, sure. So I got the sticker back, and I kind of uncrumpled it a little bit. So some of the sticky stuff on the back came off when she did that. So I think I'm just going to plaster that down right there. And I think that's a fun addition to this page. So if you go through my book, every page is like completely different. But I like it that way. But we're going to move on to another page for today. And I've got... Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a little bit more than halfway through. And what I was doing right now, let me move that out of the way. Cat's in my lap, I'm trying to get something done. I was looking through this old book I had bought at the flea market because I really love this paper. And there's a lot of paper in here. There's over almost 400 sheets of paper in here. And it's got some really beautiful old illustrations. This was printed in England in 1938. So this is before World War II. But I really like it. And I was pulling out a couple of sheets. And I want to do... I'm going to do one with pirates. So I pulled out 2 pirate pages. The last of the pirates. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And then I want to do one about my grandfather. And this one talks about telling a story and writing a story. Up here, a little quote. It says, I'm not too bad at telling a story. And the other guy says, you can certainly tell the tale. No one better, but that doesn't say you can write. Because somebody did write a book about, mostly my grandfather. Let me go get some quotes. This is the ebook that was written about mostly my grandfather, but sometimes my father. It's called An American Gothic. And it was written by Bernie Powell. Tales by and of her native sons, whose molds are broken and whose time has fled in America before political correctness. And it's got some wild tales in here from my father and my grandfather, mostly my grandfather. And he says that I think of your dad and your grandfather easily two of the best and two of the most intelligent. Don't tell me genes don't count, grin. Pals I ever had. What I learned from those two about life in general. And he goes on and on. And he was a naturalist, and I told him about myself becoming a naturalist, and he was really happy about that. So I think he was probably the biggest influence in my life in becoming a naturalist, and he says that my grandfather and father were the biggest influence in his life. Now, he wrote this in 1996. I don't know, maybe he was like in his 70s, and I can't attest to most of the stories in here because a lot of it happened before I was born, but some of them are really wild and crazy, and a few things I know he got wrong. And one thing was about my mom, because he talks about my mom. He called her Maggie, being born in Tennessee, a real mountain hillbilly with no schooling at all, and how her father stayed behind in the mountains with most of the brood. But Maggie, at around 16, I guess, had struck out for the bright lights. Well, that was like totally wrong because, well, first of all, my mother lived with her father in New York City. She was born in Manhattan in New York City. And, you know, he goes on some other places where he talks about her, and they got it kind of wrong. But the stories are funny, and I really enjoy reading about my father and my grandfather and all their escapades. So this is a lot of fun, and it's called American Gothic. And another thing about my grandfather was he loved to restore, this was his hobby, old houses. And you're not going to believe this, but I got some pictures over here. And I'm going to be putting these into my journal. And my grandfather bought this house for $2,500. It's a very, very old house. And this is him working on the stone wall out front. And you can see how much the house has changed from that to that. And this is like the side and the back. And he added on a cobbler shop because cobbler's tools were found in the wall. And so from the back of the house he added on the cobbler shop, and then he put a barn in the back there. So that's the back side that he added on. And this is sort of like a summer picture when it's all finished. So it took him 16 years on weekends to go from that to this. And I got some more shots. Let's see, there was one I wanted to show, but I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. My grandmother was an artist, and this big window there in the back of the house, that was her art studio. That was her art studio. Okay, so I plan on putting a few pictures of him working on this house in the journal. And I also have this newspaper article. And this was written in the Ridgefield Press in 1959. And it talks about how he was restoring this old house. I had this article laminated, so it's kind of hard to read, but talks about how this house, I guess, was from 1732. And one of the quotes that I really like from this article is when Mr. Rhine was interviewed, the stairs had not as yet been built, and the interview was conducted on ladders, almost perpendicular. ladders in which Mr. Rhine scaled without benefit of hands. After several no-hands ladder ascents and descents, he commented that he wasn't quite as active since his operation. This reporter, swaying dizzily and white-knuckled from clutching ladder rungs, couldn't help speculating on what Mr. Rhine's pre-operation ladder climbing technique must have been. So he was quite the character, and I do have a picture of him working on the house. That's one of them. And another one here somewhere. Always makes such a mess. But I remember him hopping across on the beams from one beam to another. I remember that ladder. I didn't like going up and down that ladder. Oh, here he is. Because he worked on this for 16 years, and I used to go with him on weekends, my brother and I, and we'd play around, and we'd get into a lot of trouble there while he was working on the house. But he always jumped from beam to beam when he was working. Now, this was his hobby. This was not his career. He worked in publishing at the time he was doing this. So I think I'd love to put these pictures of him working on the house and a couple of pictures of the house and maybe that quote about him going up and down the ladders in my journal, just like a Father's Day remembrance thing of one of my grandfathers. So the first thing I think I'd like to do is cover these white pages with these old book pages. I love the old color around the edge. It's just so totally naturally aged. And I was going to use that one. And the one over here about the teller of tales, because my grandfather really was a teller of tales. So I might put that there. I kind of like this one with the old cop on it too. So I'm just going to go and cut these down and use these pages as the background. This paper is very fragile, so I'm going to slather some matte medium under it and over it. Try to preserve it a little bit. This is from 1938, so I thought it'd be very appropriate. We called my grandfather Granddad. Granddad. He would like that. And besides restoring houses, he also collected old tools. He was quite the expert on old tools, and after a while became quite an expert on restoration also. And he was consulted. He was a consultant on the buildings in Williamsburg. If you've ever been to Williamsburg, Virginia, the old village there, he was a consultant. And according to Bernie, who wrote that book, he was also consulted by Henry Ford Company in the buildings at the village out at the Henry Ford Museum, which I got a chance to go visit a few years back. And walked around, and I looked for the shop that had the big bellows in it, because that was something he had in his old house. It was a very large bellows on the forge. Because when my grandfather, or just before my grandfather passed, he donated his tools to the Henry Ford Museum. So I wanted to go look at some of those. Of course, I had seen all the tools at the house. And played in the basement with the shavings from the lathe and other woodworking machinery he had down his basement while he was refurbishing all these old tools. And whenever I smell wood is being sawed or drilled or laid, it always reminds me of my grandfather's workshop in his basement in Haverstraw, New York. After his heart attack, or when his heart was not so good anymore, he couldn't go do houses anymore, but he still worked on restoring old chairs. And he had this one chair that was an old rocker, and it was missing one of the rockers. It was an old rocking chair, and it was missing one of the rockers on the bottom of the chair. And instead of putting on a rocker that matched, because he could have very easily have taken that one off and made one to match, because he was just really good at working with tools and wood, he put on one that didn't match. So when you sat in the chair and rocked, it was two completely different rockers in size and shape. And so when you rocked back and forth, you got kind of like this rolling of the ocean feeling, like you're on a boat at sea. And I just thought it was hysterical. He called it the old sea captain's chair. So when the sea captain retired, he would sit in his rocking chair and remember being out to sea on the boat. But he had quite the sense of humor, and he was always doing things like that. Okay, we're going to have to let this dry for quite a while before I get down to doing something else on this page. So I will, while this is drying, I'll probably go and figure out which pictures I want to put down, and I think I want to put that quote about the ladders on the page too. So I have to figure out how I'm going to do that, because I don't know if that's going to copy very well with it being laminated. Usually they come out too shiny in the copier, in the printer. All right, so I'm going to have to take a break for this. I'll be back later. I think I'm going to use this Tim Holtz paper. It's all like antique wooden rulers. I thought that would be very appropriate. And I printed out the little story about him going up and down the ladders. And somehow I'm going to glue these on here and put them on this page. And then I'm going to back these two photos of the house he was working on and put them on that page. Or should I put this here and this here? And maybe I'll do it like that. So this will go over here. That'll go over there. I'm using my plastic wrap box to trim this paper down. Get that out of the way. And I want it to be about that big. So probably right there. Give it a nice old-timey rippy edge. Oops, didn't do so well there, did I? Let's see, I just want to take off that chunk. Let's knock it back a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, I just don't want that much of a border there. Okay, let's see, this goes this way. And I just might leave it like that. So I'm going to glue these down on here to start with. And let's see. Probably just use some just use some tacky glue, I think. Some tacky glue. I want to write on there where this is. Well, this is a very different page for me. Very distressed, very antique-y. No bling, no ribbon, no lace. Very masculine. I like the way the little Bobby's peeking out back there. I got the house on this side, Granddad on this side. Part of the story about him restoring the house, and I do have some stickers. These little houses are cute. I have these little owls, steampunk owls. Maybe a house? Should I put a house there? Let me think about this. I found some of this very natural looking ribbon. Kind of like burlap, but a little bit finer. And I put one of the stickers on it with a piece of brown paper on this side, and I added a little house sticker and a little key sticker on that side. And now I'm happy because I got a little bit of shiny on the page. And I'm just going to call these pages done. Happy Father's Day, Granddad. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And happy junk journaling. And thanks for coming along today. Bye-bye now.